Merci.
Thank you very much indeed, President. I'm going to be talking about democracy and rule of law in the European Union. For several months now, farmers have been mobilizing en masse across the European Union. At the heart of these protests lies the Mercosur agreement, by far the largest and most harmful free trade agreement ever negotiated by Brussels. This agreement will have severe consequences with devastating effects on our farming, on public health, on the environment, and also on European economies, and therefore with a devastating social impact. It provides for the annual import of hundreds and thousands of additional tons of beef and poultry, cheese, cereals, sugar, and honey. These are products that we already produce in Europe, and their sole effect will be to place our farmers in direct competition. Farmers who are already being strangled by the falling income and rising costs. How can they possibly compete with cut-price products from Brazilian factory farms which operate with neither comparable wage levels nor equivalent health, environmental and animal welfare standards? In response to these warnings, the European Commission is sheltering behind so-called mirror and safeguard clauses. Yet these mechanisms are largely ineffective. Mirror clauses are neither genuinely binding nor fully enforceable, and their conditions of application remain vague. As for the safeguard clauses, they are slow, complex, subject to extremely restrictive criteria, and contingent solely on the political will of the Commission. These supposed safeguards serve primarily to make the agreement appear acceptable, not to protect farmers or the environment. Against this backdrop, on Wednesday the 21st of January, the European Parliament adopted a motion initiated by the Left Group in the European Parliament, chaired by Manon Aubry, seeking to refer the EU-Mercosur agreement to the Court of Justice of the European Union for review of its legality. This is a powerful political act. And yet, despite this, the Commission intends to trigger the provisional application of the agreement. In concrete terms, this would mean that it could enter into force even before the European Parliament has given its consent. This is a serious anti-democratic move. The framework agreement between the European Parliament and DG Trade is nonetheless clear. Trade agreements must not be provisionally applied before Parliament has given its consent. Since 2011, almost all agreements have respected this principle, with only very rare and strictly justified exceptions. In this case, nothing justifies such a forced move. This choice rides roughshod on the sovereignty of the legislative power and sends an extremely worrying message, that of an authoritarian European executive ready to bypass democracy in order to impose the worst excesses of free trade rejected by tens of thousands of farmers and by the peoples of Europe. Colleagues, we are here in the institution tasked with ensuring respect for the rule of law. Yet the executive of the European Union respects neither the legislative branch, since the Commission appears indifferent to whether or not it has the consent of the European Parliament, nor the judicial branch, as Mrs von der Leyen has not renounced the provisional application of the Mercosur Treaty despite the forthcoming judicial review by the Court of Justice of the European Union. Together with my group, we state forcefully here in this chamber, adjacent to that of the Parliament, Mrs von der Leyen, submit to the rule of law.
Thank you very much.